We are in Chicago running USA Conference at the Next Generation. Founders of High Performance Movement, event management company out of San Diego. They put on events like the Pacific Beach Fest 5K and the San Diego Santa Run in San Diego, California. And we're just gonna be doing some Q&A here and learning more about their business and what they're up to. Can you guys get closer together? Sorry, yeah. There you go. All right. All right, so guys, we would love to know a little bit more about some tips that you may have for someone that's looking to put on a new event management software, company.
Sure. So we can start. One of the biggest things about the industry, one of the quotes you always like, don't compare someone's middle to your start. So getting into it, respect the business. It's not easy, especially with all the attention to growing nationally. So our focus has been doing a great job locally and making sure we're building a great brand, a great business, making sure that the events go great, because there's no worse thing than the reputation of word of mouth, that if an event goes poorly, how fast that spreads. So that's always been our biggest focus. That said, it is exciting to put it on. It's been fun to get into it. So as long as we can do it well from each event, that the growth will happen naturally.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback what Eric was saying, I think some people will come into the business and think about 15 cities before they'll think about one city. So I think the main advice would be really focus on that one city, whether it's you're in or a big city that you know and you're familiar with, and focus on that city. Once that goes well, then think about expanding it.
Fantastic. And again, we're here with Pete Hess and Eric Marenburg, founders of High Performance Movement, event management company. And guys, if you could just let us know a little bit of how you got started in the endurance industry. We'd love to hear that.
So for me, it actually started with a story of 2 broken arms. I was a 100-pound wannabe hockey and basketball player, and 15 years old, broke both my arms on an 8-foot rim playing some basketball, and I had to do something. I had so much energy, I wanted to get into running, and that led me to start running cross country, which eventually led me to the University of Maryland, where I met this character, and we ran competitively there, and it's been a passion of mine since I was 15 years old, and I was a coach for a long time and was always around events, and that just kind of led me to the event space. So it's really been a passion of mine for over half my life.
And piggyback off what Pete was saying, I think we come off a typical example of 2 great friends that have always wanted to put on a business. Running was always our passion, so before we left other endeavors, we said, let's just put together papers and throw some ideas at the wall. High Performance Movement as a brand started as a youth fitness company. We spent our first summer in 2013 trying to grow youth fitness events, and we did. We had our first camp with 12 kids, and it was fun. We quickly learned as you grow what works best for you. We had some opportunities to create events based on past experiences and the relationships we had. So those relationships you have with people, just go with where the business can grow. It quickly became obvious that events was a better place for us and running events, and we took that organically, and within a couple months we said, hey, let's just do this all the way. Let's be all in on this. And within a couple months we left what we were doing. We shut down all those fun personal trips and expenses and said, let's start a business and let's grow events. And that's what we did. And 2 years later, we now looking to hire staff, and it's been a very exciting process.
Awesome. Again, Pete Hess and Eric Marenburg, founders of High Performance Movement Event Management. And guys, if you can give us just some common mistakes, 3 common mistakes that happen on race day that you can remember off the top of your head, what would that be?
Sure. So, from our perspective, a couple things we've done early on. One has been definitely staffing. I think we did a good job making sure if we're going to do anything right, we're always going to have our race start on time. So we work backwards from the start time, not necessarily the end time. So once the event's going, we're scrambling so much. By the time, it's an important part of the process, how things are going during the event, how we're going afterwards. We stretch ourselves so thin because we're both trying to not hire too much staff, a lot of volunteer support, which doesn't have the opportunity to get educated early on. So making sure you're well staffed and you're not stretching yourself thin, because if there's a fire drill, all of a sudden you don't have your own time. I think, a few of the other perspectives, understanding contingency. So we had, for example, our San Diego Santa Run. We had everything worked out really well. It's a tight thing on there. We thought we had the timeline set. Well, then the truck broke down that had all the equipment for tables and tents. They showed up an hour late. So all of a sudden we were scrambling. Fortunately, everything happened still. We had a little room and buffer to get things going, but we were scrambling. Where are we going to find extra tables if this doesn't happen? In hindsight, we now can realize we can schedule things well further in advance to not have that issue. So making sure you have the staff and have the contingency in place for that.
Yeah, and I think a key as well is really taking the time to learn from those mistakes. I mean, I think we learned Beach Fest one year. We were standing on the beach at 1 o'clock. The race was now done. Me and him were standing there with Buddy, and we're like, wait a minute, all our stuff is here. Well, we got the race off great, but we hadn't thought all the way through that process. So the key is learning from that mistake then, and then bringing that to the next event that you do, and putting in place that now there will be a staff there for that time, and we'll make sure we have the contingency plan for if the tables don't show up, and we don't have that hour. So really learning from your mistakes as well is a key.
Awesome. Thank you. For all of those that are joining, these are Pete Hess and Eric Marenburg, founders of High Performance Movement Event Management. You guys are getting tons of hearts here, which is awesome. One last question, guys. I know you put on the Pacific Beach Fest 5K and the Santa Run, San Diego, California. What is the biggest difference between organizing a traditional running event versus a non-traditional running event?
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot with San Diego Santa Run. It's really unique. So our passion, as Pete mentioned, we came up and we met through University of Maryland track and field. So through and through, we like to incorporate that competitive side. But as a marketplace, obviously, it's about the experience, this millennial experience. That's what we're here for a conference with today. And so the San Diego Santa Run, the 5K event, is an untimed 5K. It's kind of similar we see in the market where it's all about the experience, the pictures. We also have a 1 mile event that goes on right afterwards, part of the same event, that's a traditional, competitive, hyper time, the focus on the timing to be a very competitive 1 mile. So we see both sides of it. Some of the experiences that you expect it's put your shoes in those participants. So from the participants in our 5K, they want to have time and a lot of space for great pictures and just enjoying the experience and the music and enjoying their surroundings and take it in. From the milers, it's all about that race better start right on time because they're working backwards on their warm-up and they want to make sure that their timing works and their chip works. And so their attention and detail is much more focused on the performance versus those in the experience world much more just on the overall experience. That said, those experiences are definitely blending together because you're now getting a lot of those put together, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think the really exciting thing is, and I think we're learning this here at this conference, is there's a lot of the use of the word versus, as Travis Schneider talked about from the Color Run. And the exciting thing to me is more people are in the running space now than ever have been. So I don't know if it's much as the traditional versus non-traditional or just running overall is growing. And that's a great thing for the sport. We're big track fans, so I know USA Track and Field Championships are going on this weekend, and I'm geeking out on it, and I'm following all the results. And I think the exciting thing is all these non-traditional events, 15-year-olds are going to it, and 10-year-olds are running 5Ks now. And you know what? That 10-year-old might be our next great Olympic champion, and they started at the Color Run. They started at a non-traditional event. So just having this many people in the running space now, super exciting time for the sport.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. Again, these are Pete Hess and Eric Marenburg, founders of High Performance Movement Event Management Company. We are here at the Running USA conference for the next evolution. Don't forget to hashtag TNE 2015. Have an awesome day. Thanks, guys.